Vidhammer Fantasy.
Welcome back to Vidhammer. I'm Spudlow, and in this video I'm going over my 5th and final round at the Crucible 3 Grand Tournament that was held in Orlando, Florida in March of 2014. This time I'm going up against Walter and his Dark Elves as we play on the underground Cthulhu Skull Table. And this report is another picture-only report because my video camera was busy recording the final table. But I wish I'd gotten this one on film as well, because I got to play the Dark Elves with a very interesting build, and I played against another very friendly player. Our scenario for this round is a straight-up battle line, with 1 bonus point for killing each type of enemy unit. So 1 point if you killed at least 1 Lord, 1 for killing at least 1 hero, 1 for core, special, rare, so on. So a maximum of 5 total. We have several impassable terrain elements, a couple of hills, and our centerpiece, which is actually an idol of Gork that lets you reroll failed charge distances. For spell generation, he has 2 units of Doomfire Warlock Fast Cavalry that know Soul Blight and Doombolt. He also has a level 1 with the Lore of Beasts that takes the signature spell Wyson's Wild Form that gives a unit +1 strength and +1 toughness. I give a full rundown of my army list in a separate video, but I'll provide the link for you if you want to check it out. For my casters though, my level 1 Engineer takes Warp Lightning, while the level 2 gets Scorch and Death Frenzy, and the Grey Seer ends up with Blessed with Filth, Wither, Plague, and the Dreaded 13th. This is how things look after deployment. He's got some Dark Rider Cavalry and some Warlocks off to the right, along with a Bolt Thrower, so I've got my Gutter Runners over there blocking the Vanguard move, and the Hell Pit that can basically go that way and do his own thing. There are 2 Hydras in the center of his line, with a block of Executioners to the right of it, and a block of Witches on its left, followed by a unit of Corsairs with more Dark Riders in front of them. Another unit of Warlocks and a Bolt Thrower are tucked behind the left column. I've got my Slaves and Storm Vermin in the center, and I'm already playing my hand, really. With the terrain in the center, I'm hoping to have the Slaves bogged down the left side, while the Storm Vermin can hopefully pull out a win on the right. The Doom Wheel is off to the far left, trying to stay out of trouble. Character-wise, my Bonebreaker, Grey Seer, and level 1 Engineer all go with the right side Clan Rats. The BSB goes with the Storm Vermin as always, and the level 2 Engineer goes in the left side Clan Rats. Other start of game elements give my Storm Vermin Hatred from the Skavenbrew effect, and my Grey Seer ends up with 1 Warpstone token. I win the first turn roll and keep most of my units back. The Hell Pit aims right, and I move my Gutter Runners to the opposite side of that hill, so you can't see them, but my opponents certainly can. I put the Giant Rats right in front of one of the Stalagmites, and I put the Warp Fire Thrower up in the mix as well. I also take my Warlord and move him into the Storm Vermin. Magic is 11 versus 5, and since I didn't move forward, some of my best spells are out of range. But I can get Scorch off on the left side Warlocks for 2 wounds, and I'm also able to get Death Frenzy on my Storm Vermin. I don't know exactly what the last spell I tried was, but he dispelled it anyway. In shooting, the Doom Wheel manages to hit the Warlocks at strength 10 and kill off 2 more. They fail the panic test this time and run back a bit. The first cannon tries to shoot through the fleeing Warlocks into the Hydra, but comes up at strength 2 and fails to wound. The second misfires, but doesn't explode. That's nice for a change. Finally, the Gutter Runners aim for the far right Warlocks and manage a single wound after all of their saves. The Dark Elves charge my Gutter Runners while his other units move up, the fleeing Warlocks being able to rally, and I take a late loss of 4 models to the Death Frenzy effect on my Storm Vermin. He rolls Snake Eyes for his magic phase, and I actually channel one as well. He uses both dice for Doombolt into the Hell Pit, but it's not enough to go off. For shooting, his Bolt Thrower fires at the Hell Pit but misses, while the second gets 3 hits but fails to wound. The Clan Rats also take some repeater fire, but no wounds there. Then in combat, the gutter runners take 2 wounds, lose the combat, and flee off of the board with the cavalry close behind. I charge the left side Dark Riders with my slaves, and he chooses to flee, so I try to have them redirect into the Hydra, but they don't make the distance. Hell Pit runs up 10 inches, and the Doom Wheel actually makes the distance into the Corsairs. I have my Storm Vermin do a swift reform back to 5 wide, since I had them 6 wide to start, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to fit in front of the cannon. The Grey Seer Clan Rat unit moves back a bit as well. Magic this time is 10 versus 6, and I use the first 4 for Plague on the Executioners, but he dispels this with all 6 of his dice. Without any dice left to stop it, I use my remaining 6 to go for dreaded 13th on the Executioners. I actually get enough for this thing to go off, but he dispels it with a scroll since I didn't get Irresistible Force. Shooting-wise, the Doom Wheel manages to put 3 wounds on the Corsairs. The first Warp Lightning Cannon gets a misfire and overloads. It shoots a picture-perfect shot at my Grey Seer's Clan Rat bunker, but it was actually just a little on the short side, so only 3 rats died. But that was a little too close for comfort. First shot has me so on edge that I was seriously considering not firing my second cannon. It was actually my opponent, Walter, who talked me into it, and of course that shot goes right through the Hydra and a bunch of witches at strength 8. Kills the Hydra and about 6 witches, probably my best shot of the tournament because it was the one I wasn't willing to actually take. Warp Fire Thrower gets a very nice shot on the Executioners for 9 or 10 wounds out of that one. And finally, I have my Engineer cap off his Doom Rocket at him as well. I roll 5 dice, needing about 16 inches, and I roll 23 and overshoot into a big bunch of nothingness. For combat, my Doom Wheel gets 6 impact hits, and I roll 4 ones. The rats do 1 more, and the Doom Wheel ends up taking 2. So I lose the combat on a tie without a musician, and I flee. He doesn't catch the Doom Wheel as it flies up onto Pride Rock over here, but it doesn't really matter. So here's how we're looking for the top of... Oh wait, he charges the Doom Wheel that flees off of the board. Yep. And he redirects into the Clan Rats, while the Executioners charge the giant rats on the other side. Cavalry units move up in for the possible charge on my cannons later on. Another tough magic phase for the Dark Elves, as it's 3 versus 2, and he uses all 3 for Wyson's Wild Form on the Corsairs, and I go ahead and let this one go. I know the Clan Rats are going to lose combat either way, and I'd rather save my scroll for when it could make a difference. Except that I forgot that the Engineer who's in that block is actually the one with the Dispel Scroll. Whoops. Dark Riders and Bolt Throwers shoot for the Hell Pit and manage a single wound, but he actually saves it. The Hydra does his StarCraft Firebat impersonation and smokes 13 Storm Vermin. Then in combat, the Executioners make quick work of the giant rats and reform. The Corsairs hit the Clan Rats for 6 and only take 1 in return. I lose combat but stay steadfast and pass the break test. I have the Storm Vermin charge the Executioners, but the Warp Fire Thrower is in the way. Actually, it isn't, but I just couldn't resist a setup like that. I actually make all of the charges. I had to take a picture of this one so people can actually see I do make charges once every 5 games. The slaves even manage their charge, so the Hydra won't get to countercharge my Storm Vermin. Hell Pit makes it into the Warlocks on the far right as well. Now if I can just do the combats in the right order. Magic is 12 versus 6, and I used the first 3 for Warp Lightning on the Dark Riders that had come back on the board and were on this hill, and it was actually enough to kill off the unit. I used the next for Death Frenzy on the Clan Rats that are in combat with the Corsairs, so maybe they'll be able to do something this round. Finally, I used the last 6 for Wither on the Executioners, but he was able to dispel with his 6. My first cannon shoots for the Bolt Thrower and sticks in the ground for no effect. Second also shoots for a bolt thrower, but only nicks at strength 4 and fails to wound. In our combats, the Hell Pit hits the Warlocks and is able to kill them off in impact hits, and actually makes the overrun into the Executioner combat. Then I fight the Slave combat, where a bunch of slaves die, but they pass their break test with Snake Eyes. Even though they didn't need the insane courage, I do admire their enthusiasm. The Clan Rats with Death Frenzy manage 1 wound. Yep, they're fired, but they do pass their break test, so maybe not yet. Then we do the big combat. Hell Pit takes out 5 from impact hits, then my assassin pops out and issues a challenge, which his BSB accepts. The assassin wins the challenge, but he does take a wound in the process, so now he's -1 attack. Warp Fire Thrower gets ritualistically slain by the Executioners, and they're able to put 1 wound on the Hell Pit, and a couple go in the direction of the Warlord, but he shrugs them off. The Storm Vermin don't fare quite so well and lose 7. Then it's Lovin time, and he's able to manage 11 wounds from his attacks and Thunderstomp. The Storm Vermin, Warlord, and Bonebreaker add enough to actually take them down to their last few models, including his Lord, that get cut down in their final escape. We run out of time at this point, but he should have had another turn for things to be even, so I give him the points for my Clan Rats that were engaged with his Corsairs, and my leftmost cannon, which assuredly would have been trampled by his Dark Riders. In the final points total, I did actually end up with a slight victory, and I even got the full set of bonus points to boot, ending up at 17-12. Thus ends my first ever Grand Tournament, and as I think about all the games that I played, can't help but wonder when and where the next one's going to be. I hope you've all enjoyed watching these battles as much as I've enjoyed playing in them. Stay tuned for my final battle report from the tournament, the final table matchup between Tom's Dark Elves and Grady's Demons of Chaos. That'll be up soon, so until then, keep fighting.